Hello everybody! Welcome to Tanchaz Talk, Episode 3. Today we take a deep dive into one of the legends of the Táncház movement, the violinist from Kalotaszeg, the great, the late Fodor Sandor Neti Sanyi bácsi. I'm your host, Kalman Magyar Öcsi, coming to you from the law office of Magyar, Bogle and O'Hara in Toronto. Makeshift studio. Hi everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tanchaz Talk. This is our first one that's, well, it's live in the sense that I'm recording this on Facebook Live, but it's only to myself. So this is a kind of a private Facebook Live. This is, for me, the easiest, most technologically possible way of recording these episodes, at least for now. So it's live in the sense that it's uncut, and if there's some gaps, technical and otherwise, then you will share them with me live. And I will be releasing this, of course, right away on tanchaz.com, the show's website, as well as on the YouTube channel, Tanchaz Talk. And also, I will be releasing it on Facebook, of course. Today, we feature some music from Kalotaszeg. Kalotaszeg in Western Transylvania, and this is probably my personal favorite region. Well, I don't want to play favors here, but let's face it, I love Kalotaszeg music, and I know the dancing is beautiful and the singing as well. You know, based on where it's located and the level of musicianship and the socioeconomic factors and the cultural factors, you know, it's a perfect mix, confluence of old music, newer music. The mix of the various ethnic groups, Hungarians, Roma, Romanians, and even the Saxons and the Jews living in Kalotaszeg, and its proximity to current day, the border of Hungary, and it's just like it's and we could also talk about the musical dynasties that are from there. It's just like perfect omelet, so to speak, of music and dance and song. And boy, we can highlight many musicians, can't we, from Kalotaszeg. Many violinists and contra players and bass players and cello players. But today we're going to talk about Sanyi bácsi. Sandor Fodor, the late and the great violinist that came to America and to Canada and elsewhere many times, and he's a bit of a celebrity to us before he unfortunately passed away in 2004. Let's do some basic background information on Neti before we play another track from him. And I'm going to call him Neti or Sanyi Bácsi because both names were used for him. He was born in 1922 in Gyulu, and his parents were divorced when he was a kid. He described his father as somewhat of a deadbeat father, although does credit his father to teaching him his first tune. Neti first learned his first tune on the violin from his dad. When he was young, his mom, who raised him, they moved to Suchag, which is a village in Kalotaszeg. His mother's name, maiden name, is Neti, so that's why he's called Neti. And that's his nickname, though. That's stuck. That's his mother's name. Neti studied with the great Csipás Feri Sr., Balkezes, the left-handed, as they called him. Of course, we also know he's a great musical dynasty, the Csipás family. And when Neti, during his lifetime, he played a lot in Suchag and in Budonkút as well. He described those two villages as probably his most frequently visited place for weddings and gigs and the like. And we're going to talk some interesting side stories and interesting connections with respect to Neti. But, I would say in the Táncház movement, he became a celebrity, didn't he? To many of us. And I'm also very happy to have learned a tune from him, which I'll play. A couple of tunes, but I'll play one of them later. And maybe we'll dig into some of the technique that makes him so special. He was an extraordinary violinist, a wonderful, wonderful performer. And he's on many recordings as well. And he really impacted and influenced the Táncház movement in many, many ways. So I mean, there's so much more we can say and we will say about Neti. I would like to keep playing some of his music here, and this is from a great CD. You guys might remember it. It's with Kicsi Aladár, Váralmasi Kicsi Aladár, a very good violinist, very highly trained, like restaurant musician, actually. And Fono put out a great CD with Neti and Kicsi Aladár as the lead violinists. And in this track, towards the end, these two guys jammed. The bass player and the contra player split out, and you just hear the two of them laughing and jamming and having a great time. And then Sanyi Bácsi, you'll hear his trademark laugh at the end of that track. This is Roman Rend from Fono. This is the second half of that track. Fono's album with Neti, Sanyi Bácsi and Kicsi Aladár. Part of Fono's old Utolsó Óra, the New Patria collection, which you might recall, a wonderful series of CDs. buy one cifra and get 5 free. A lot of cifra going on. That's high stuff right there. Another cifra. You feel like you're inside that violin. It sounds so guttural. Here comes the real jazz. Wait for it. Bacci's laugh at the end of that track, so amazing. I love how the violin, one of the violins come out and play some contra, and then they switch off, and at the very end they just can't stop. They were having so much fun. That was Neti Bacci with Kicsi Aladár. So there's so many stories to tell. And as I said, there are many good recordings, and there's a couple of films about Neti as well. And Tanchaz Talk, who makes a lot of great films and has made a lot of great films about Hungarian folk artists and villagers and ethnic field recordings. He brings it a bit to life for us. He made a great film about Neti Bacci, and we're going to take a quick listen to a clip from there. Neti was of course, a village musician, and he was discovered by the lovers of the Táncház movement. Initially, my understanding is from Kalman Magyar was his first real proponent who brought him out to Hungary and to the cities to play, and of course eventually to the United States. Kalman Magyar is now the head of Hagyományok Háza, but he's a guy from Székelyföld whose sister married into Kalotaszeg, and there's a great CD made about of their wedding, actually, where Neti and many other violinists were there. And Laci, when he moved to Budapest, started playing with the Öcsi ensemble, and it was of course a lead proponent of the group and their manager. And he was in the United States and Canada many times, and now he does wonderful work with the Hagyományok Háza. So as you know, we can sense from Sanyi Bacci that, you know, he was kind of removed from that village environment, and he started playing concerts really all over the West, and you know, they would just take him, drag him, you know, take him here, take him there, and he really wasn't familiar where he was going. You know, he was barely literate, to be honest, and but he had very high emotional intelligence, an unbelievable stage presence, It's like he read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Seth Godin's books on marketing, and Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence. I mean, he just exhumed this confidence and this musicianship and this personality, and he had this big head of white hair and a big grin all the time when he played, and he used his whole body to make the music. It was really something to be in his presence and to watch him, and that what makes him so legendary. I love this clip from the movie of Somjas György, where Neti, the Öcsi ensemble is playing a concert in collaboration with the Philharmonic Orchestra. That's right, the Philharmonic Orchestra of Philadelphia. So he's in Philadelphia, and this is a very quick concert interview that's done at this in the dressing room, in the green room, and the Öcsi ensemble is there, and you can see Öcsi Csaba in the back in the mirror, kind of grinning, and of course he's drinking something while Sanyi bácsi is being interviewed. If you're going to watch this film, you should bring an interpreter. I'm going to let it run in Hungarian. It's just a couple of seconds long, but basically they ask Sanyi bácsi where he is, and he says, I'm in America. Okay, but what city? He's like, I have no idea what city I'm in. All I know is I'm here. And then they ask him, what are you going to play? And he said something from Kalotaszeg, which is hilarious. And you could hear his voice in Hungarian. And this is the Somjas György film called Fodor, Neti, Sandor. It's actually on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's a 54-minute long film. Here's a little clip.
Sanyi bácsi, hol vagyunk ma este?
Hát én azt nem tudom megmondani, tudom, hogy Amerikában, de milyen egy nagy színházban, de hát én nem tudom megmondani, hogy hogy nevezik ezt a...
Most az úgy hívják a város, hogy Philadelphia.
Philadelphia? Vagyunk?
És milyen rendezvény van ma este?
Koncertet muzsikálunk a Philadelphia nagy zenekara.
És a Sanyi bácsi mit fog játszani?
Hát én valami kalotaszegi csárdás, szaporát, hajnali.
És izgul, vagy...
Hát, én nagyon türelmes vagyok. Én nem izgulok egy cseppet sem, aztán már nem csak egyszer történt meg ez, állandóan történt. Minden nap majdnem történnek ilyen előadások. Hát az nem szabad izgulni, nyugodtan kell lenni, és odaadással kell lenni, hogy a nép szeresse a vendéget.
That's Sanyi bácsi being interviewed before the concert, and they ask him at the end, are you nervous? And he says, no, I play concerts like this pretty much every day. Which might have been true for a couple of days in a row when he was in Philadelphia or at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. I know my father, in collaboration with Kalman Magyar Jr, they organized a bunch of these wonderful tours and concert events. And we'll talk more about Öcsi as well. Actually, let's listen to a song from you guys might remember this CD. This was Rounder Records called Transylvanian Village Music. And it was the Öcsi ensemble, and Sanyi bácsi played on a few tracks, and this is the Shepherd song that he played. This is a wonderful tradition from Transylvania and from Hungary as well, when the shepherd has lost his sheep, so it's very sad music, and it speeds up, and he thinks he finds the sheep, but it's not those sheep. It's actually there's some rocks that were in the distance that looked like the sheep, so the shepherd is sad again, and on it goes, and Sanyi bácsi played a wonderful version of this. And let's listen into that one. This is Kalman Magyar's on the contra with Do Robi on the bass. trills, that passion, the whole body. Dynamics. Fancy part. Hey, ho! The master of dynamics, you know, playing softly when needed. That draws in the listener beautifully. That's the Shepherd's Song, beautifully played by Sanyi bácsi. There's another film that's on the YouTube, and it's called Egy hangból, from one note. And I wanted to play a quick clip for you. This is Neti himself talking about his students, talking about the various musicians, mostly from Budapest, that he was that he was lucky enough to teach, and he talks about teaching and his passion for teaching. Let's listen to this little clip.
Sanyi bácsi, de neked vannak tanítványaid is.
Van.
Ki?
Van.
Magyarországon?
Magyarországon, igen, vannak. Vannak többen. Nem is mondom, Beja, ezek a Ökrös Csabi, Molnár Miki, ezek már régen tanulnak tőlem is. Aztán mindig jöttek is, tanítom. Most, mai napig is tanítom őket. Mai napig is azt mondja a Ökrös Csabinek, jaj, Sanyi bácsi, még sokat kell tanulja.
So that's that's a wonderful clip, because it's quite sad, of course, that he talks about Ökrös Csaba, who passed away last year as his student, and he says, poor Csaba, or he says, Csaba always says to me, you know, I have so much to learn from you, Neti. It's so true. He also mentions Molnár Miki, from the second violinist from the old Ökrös ensemble, and Salamon Beja from Méta. And there are many other students as well. And I know, you know, we're lucky I'll talk about Muzsikás for a minute, because Muzsikás also performed with Neti several times and toured with him. And you know, if you see anyone from Muzsikás, any of the gang or Sebesti Marta, you know, buy them a drink and thank them. And the reason I'm saying that is because, you know, they've probably done the most in terms of putting Hungarian folk music on the map. You know, we could debate and argue whether it's the most cutting edge or the most, you know, most archaic form, or, you know, the various style and all that. We can talk about that, and it's a great debate to have. But in terms of what Muzsikás has done, and the band, you know, the level of consistency and the artistry and the way to perform for the Western audiences, Muzsikás is wonderful. So make sure you thank them and buy them a drink. And they also, of course, perform with Neti. And when Neti was in America, a couple of times with Öcsi, I know we made a T-shirt that says "Neti played for me." And Neti did teach also when he was here, and he didn't mention me in that interview, but he taught a few of us at the symposium. This would have been in mid-90s when we were there with Öcsi. And I wanted to grab my violin here and kind of show you show you a piece that I learned from him during that week, and maybe dissect it a little, just to show you a few of the interesting things that Neti was doing musically that might not be so obvious. First thing, you know how we tighten the bow? This is the bow for the violin. And Neti was a big proponent of not over-tightening it. And why? Because when the bow landed on the string, he wanted to have a little pop, like the wood part and the bow part all land at the same time and give a little percussive effect. So that's a very important part of the right hand technique that he had. On the left hand, with respect to the trills, he didn't do vibrato because he's not a classically trained violinist, and that's not the style. He didn't go. Instead, he did what I call the poor man's vibrato, where he took a note and he always said, "Tedd le a hangot, aztán trillazzál." So you put the note down first, and then you trill a note up and down, like that. All right. And also another thing that he did when we go, instead of just a boring open string, he would go, put a little note from the previous string right under it. And these were little tricks that he taught us. I was lucky enough to learn from him. Of course, I probably don't do him justice. He is the master after all. But I was very happy to not just have Neti play for me, but also to teach me a little. Of course, his greatest, probably most well-known student became Öcsi Csaba. Öcsi Csaba really took over Neti's legacy and continued it forward, and oftentimes they would play together and you couldn't tell which one was playing. He's a wonderful violinist of the Kalotaszegi style, and of course unfortunately passed away last year. many years after, 15 years after Neti did. We have to know that the Öcsi ensemble for the Táncház movement in America, at least, or and in Hungary, but they were really, really big here in North America. For us, they were like the Rolling Stones or the Jonas Brothers or whatever. They were a big deal. They were for us by far the go-to and the best band to try to emulate, and the way they took the village music and put it onto the stage and into recordings, and of course playing Tancház's they had no equal. They did a lot of touring here, and in 1994 they had a couple of days off in Los Angeles, and they went to their friend Dave Feeney, who was a very good bass player, Dave Feeney, and unfortunately Dave passed away as well many years ago. He was a good friend of the band, and he took them to a recording studio in Hollywood called Around Sound Studios, and they recorded a full-length CD. I don't know who remembers this. It's called Hypoglassus. It's a wonderful CD with great music of the music they were touring at the time. And the Öcsi ensemble, Neti was not with them then on that tour, but they did a track called the Kisperti, Hajnali, and a Legényes. And this is that track recorded in Around Sound Studios in Hollywood. Öcsi Csaba on the violin. Of course, a very rare recording of a band from Hungary that did not utilize vocals. None of these tracks have vocals. They didn't have a singer touring with them at the time. Balogh Kalman's on the CD though, the guest cimbalom player. This CD kind of reminds me of that. Remember the Hajnali CD? This was all slow songs and keserves that Öcsi put together with many singers, and it's 57 minutes of keserves and Hajnali, and finally like a 1 minute csárdas, and that's the Hajnali CD. It became a classic. Ökörös Csaba went on to study and get his degree at the Liszt Ferenc Academy of Music and also taught there, among many other accolades he had. That's Ökörös Csaba, Kalman Laci and Dorobi together. Hypoglossousidé, an old one. Soon after I graduated from the Tamburitsins, mid-90s, 95 or so, I started playing with a musician in New York City, a guitarist. Because at that time we were playing weddings and dinner dances and balls. And the musician I met, actually my father met him and introduced me to him. His name was Újvári Miklós. And Miki was from Kolozsvár, and he was a very well-trained guitarist who had played in the Kolozsvár theater group, and he had played a bunch of gigs in Transylvania. And like many people, he came to the United States, to New York, in search of a better life. And he's also a very crafty guy. And he was over our house, and I was practicing with some friends, and he kind of looked up. He was working on something. He was like a handyman, and he looked up and he said, "You should try A7." And I'm like, A7, okay. So this guy knows something. He's a smart guy musically. So we started playing together. And he knew we were into folk music, and he said one day, I used to play with Neti Sanyi. And I stopped and I looked at him. I couldn't believe it. I said, Sanyi, Neti, Fodor, Sandor, Neti, we're not the same guy. He's like, yeah, of course. We played weddings in various villages, and sometimes my band would play, and the Sanyi band would play as well. It would be more modern music with the drums and the piano, and then Sanyi the folk string band would play, and then occasionally they'd actually play together. So Sanyi would play csárdas music, but also wedding type of music. Actually, don't believe him. I have a quick clip here. This is Sanyi with Tony Rudi playing at a party. They're playing a swing called a combiné. This is recorded in Kalotaszeg at a wedding. That's Sanyi Bácsi. So Sanyi Bácsi had real range, you know what I'm talking about? He could play all kinds of various styles of music, not just shepherd songs and hoynolis and szaporok, but this stuff too. Tangos, waltzes, foxtrots, swing. Well, if you know about that tune, if you know what that is, let me know. Who's playing guitar? I'd be very curious if anyone out there knows about that recording. So You know, Miki was telling me that my friend Miki was telling me that, you know, I know like Neti has become somewhat of a celebrity here in the Táncház movement and in America, but you know, it's very tough life that these musicians had, and he would tell me a lot of stories of, you know, how not glamorous the situation is. Just to give you a picture, you know, the, the people that invited Neti, who was a Roma himself, and they would really, you know, not treat him the most respectfully sometimes. And they would yell at him and curse at him and throw things at him and demand that he keep playing. And Miki had a or play this, don't play that. And you don't know this song, you stink, we're not going to invite you again. You know, all these kind of horrible things. And this was so ingrained, this you know, life of service in Sanyibachi, that when we were at the symposium one year, and Neti was there with Öcsi, that's the year they were teaching, and we had a fake wedding. You might remember that, some people that were there, and you know, this was a mock wedding, and Sanyibachi, you know, led the band, led Öcsi, and you know, it was a mock wedding. It was not a big deal, but you know, Sanyibachi took it very seriously, and every time, you know, you know, somebody would say, start playing Sanyibachi, he was there with his violin, jump up, and meanwhile he turned around and the Öcsi guys are, you know, sitting smoking on the grass, drinking palinka, and he's like, let's go guys, and you know, these guys from Budapest, they're like, relax old man, we'll get there, you know, so it's just a mock wedding, take it easy. So he you know, Sanyibachi took this stuff very, very seriously. He was always ready to please, and he could not get that out of his system. One day, Miki was telling me they had a wedding, and it was 4 or 5 in the morning, and these guys were ready to go home, but the, you know, the men wanted to keep singing the Hajnali, and so Sanyibachi said, "Fiú, kapcsoljátok le a motorokat, you know, turn off the engines, turn off the amplifiers." He said, "Start packing the car. I will go play for these guys over there at the bar. I'll keep them entertained. When the car's ready, you guys pull the car around, get my violin case, and I'll jump in with my violin inside the car." That's how he took care of his musicians. So that's what they did. The guys packed up. They packed up all the amps and all the instruments, and they waited for the getaway. And literally, Sanyibachi ran out of the bar with a violin in his hand, jumped into the car, and they sped home. And so they could stop playing at some point in the you know, late night, early morning. I wanted to play a little clip of the Continental Dance Orchestra, which was the band that Miki and I played together in New York. This is really neither here nor there, but this was a really fun band, and this is kind of, I'll always remember the relationship with Miki. He became a good friend, and these other musicians in the band. We had we played in multiple setups. Miki and I were really the main crew. But we had a very good drummer, Angelo Miranda, Puerto Rican musician from New York, and also Hugo Duran, the bass player that played with us on this track. Hugo used to play for Eddie Palmieri, the great Cuban jazz player. So I guess you could say Neti and Eddie Palmieri are somewhat related by a couple of degrees of separation. Hugo was quite a character. He was actually the first and only musician I ever had to quit on me mid-gig. We were in Washington D.C. and we're playing at a ball there, and he looks over at me. He's playing the bass, and I'm playing the piano. He says, "Hey Öcsi," and I'm like, that's what he called me instead of Öcsi. He's, "Hey Öcsi." I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Man, this is the last gig I'm playing with y'all." I'm like, okay. I'm not sure what happened there, but he needed a ride home, so from Washington. So at least he finished the gig. I took him a ride home, and that's the last time I've played with Hugo. But he's a very, very well-known musician up in the Harlem area in New York. And we had a great singer at that time, Apatini Lisa, whose grandfather was a famous Apatini Gyusibachi, who was the radio show host in New York City for many, many years. and Lisa was a great singer, and she didn't really speak Hungarian, but she learned all these Hungarian songs, of course, from her her grandfather and her father's they're Hungarian. And this is Járom az utam, a song we played. This was at the end of a wedding. You could hear us saying goodbye at the end. This was sometime in mid 2000 something, 2004, 2005. Here, Miki's mad guitar solo in a few bars.
Az utat kopott, utcák nevét tudom, mert én itt születtem, ez a hazám. Itt kísért anyám, iskolába szegény, ott volt a szeme, vigyázott rám. Itt minden emlék, múltam hozzá felé, mert én itt születtem, ez a hazám. Tudom, a nap az másút szebben ragyog, sok itt a füst, a korom és a kör, de itthon mégis angyal földön vagyok. A Váci út és leút között én romansz uton, macska köves uton, sok régi barát köszönt én reám. Én minden öreg haver nevét tudom, mert én itt születtem.
Here comes Újvári Miki solo. So that's the relationship between Neti and the Continental Dance Orchestra and Eddie Palmieri on the other end of that one. So this was a fun. I always enjoyed hearing the stories from Miki about Sanyi Bácsi, but I got a real sense of what a tough life Sanyi Bácsi had back home. When he was not around gallivanting with Öcsi and Muzsikás in Holland, or Öcsi band in Philadelphia or Brooklyn or whatever, and I'm sure he's very grateful for those opportunities, but I think they respected him back home as well. Let's just end the song.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Jó éjszakát! Good night! Get him safe, everyone.
That was silly. So you hear me playing the piano on that track, actually, and then this kind of leads well into the legacy of Neti and how he continues to impact us today, and that is through his son, Neti Sanyi Jr., or Sanyika as they call him. I remember back in the day, Sanyi Bácsi would tell me about his son, because he knew I played piano, and he was telling me how, my son is a very, very highly trained musician. He's going to the conservatory, and he's learning the keyboard, and he's kind of the next level, and he understands jazz, and he understands, he understands folk music. But I really want him to, to focus on the classical and and developing further than I did. That was kind of the message. And since his father passed, and we were very lucky to hear them to play together. And there's only one Sanyibachi, but I really like how Sanyika plays. There's like I say, not to replace his dad, but it's nice. You could the characteristics of some of the musicality and the look as well is nice to see. And he made a wonderful CD. I'd like to play 2 tracks from there now. One of them is Sanyika playing the piano, which is I'm sure his father would have loved that. The CD that this is called the Szegelet, and the track is called Zongorás, the piano style, or on the piano. And this is where Sanyika, Neti Sanyi Jr. plays the piano, and Sós András, a violinist from Budapest, plays on the violin. And this is a very nice kind of contemporary style. I enjoyed it. It's something very special for me. It combines the old world music of Sanyika's dad with the future, and with a little more sophisticated in terms of the jazz chords and all, like kind of a contemporary world music, if you could say that, approach. And let's enjoy this track here. That's him playing piano. Minor 6. Like a bit of a lounge musician. Really, really, really nice. C minor 6. By the way, I yelled out C minor 6. Let me explain what that is. There's a C major chord. I mean, if you took any music, hopefully you know that. There's C minor chord. And that just changes the middle note. And C6 is where you put the 6th note of the scale of C, which is A, on top of that chord. here's a sixth one. So that's what Sanyi would play on the piano there. You could probably hear that little jazzy approach. But of course, he's also a great fiddle player, and this is egy román rend. It's called román rend from that same CD, and this is him playing. Actually, this is a nice slow piece with some cimbalom in the background. Neti Sanyi Jr. Wonderful use of dynamics, using small parts of the bow. Draw the listener in. The backup band on this is the Buddha Folk Band, including our friend Solomon Shomaz on this one, on the accordion. Called the Invirtita, Romanian dance from Kalotaszeg. some liberties have been taken here with the chords, the background, and second violin and the like. So it's not quite traditional, but it's based on traditional songs, and it features probably some of the special stylings of not just the Buddha folk band, but of course I'm sure the concepts created by Neti Jr. His influences from classical music and from jazz and the like. It's a part of his dad's legacy. So we're going to close the show soon. I wanted you to make sure you check out and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Tanchaz Talk. And I also want to make sure that you could you could watch this on Facebook, and also of course downloadable episodes on tanchaz.com, and there's some more show information there, and you can catch up on the old episodes as well when you're there. I don't want to paint an overly rosy picture, of course, of Sanyi Bácsi's life. There was sometimes some cultural misunderstandings or cultural related disputes, some financial disagreements, with him as well. I know some people might have had those experiences with him, but overall, I would say he had a very, very positive impact, an enormous influence on the Táncház movement, on the music of Kalotaszeg, on the bands, on North American Hungarian folklore with his touring here. And he probably introduced a lot of people in the Philadelphia Concert Hall and the Brooklyn Academy of Music and wherever his travels took him with Öcsi and with Muzsikás and with some others, the people that weren't quite expecting to hear that, and everybody who watched him enjoyed his music. And I'm very happy to kind of dedicate the first. We went kind of micro today on one man and one man's legacy and music, but I think he's worth it. He's certainly one of a kind, and he was really the celebrity primash from Transylvania. Of course, afterwards, we had Szász Csavás and some others join us here in North America, but Neti, I think, was one of the first that really touched us very positively, and I was very happy to dedicate this episode to him. Some more music from his son here. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to Tanchaz Talk, and we'll see you next time. The last track I'm going to play has Sanyi Bácsi talking on the beginning of it, and he will you'll hear his voice and hear him play a beautiful piece, and that's what we'll take you out on after Neti Jr. closes this piece.
Muzsikáltam én, Fodor Sándor, Neti, 74 éves koromban.
nice time to pause and thank Neti for all of the wonderful music. We also think of all the masters of the Kalotaszeg region. And of course, Öcsi Csaba.